Good evening, and you are very welcome to episode 8 of season 2 of the Rugby Show here on finalwhistle.ie. Once again, it's myself, Breifne Early, joined by Ciaron Noble to dissect everything AIL related over the last 7 days and into what will be the last weekend of action prior to Christmas. Ciaron, it's been a busy week. Semi-finals in the ladies' competitions, round 8 in the men's. What were you up to over the weekend? How'd you get on?
I was in All Belvedere at the weekend, Breifne, so I was doing the commentary for the All Belvedere Malone game. But yeah, it's mad to think that we're kind of the last weekend of the first half of the season. It's went really quick, It does go by quite fast, and then we have a 5 week break, of course, for Christmas, and then we get back into it in January. But it's been a really good season for both the men and the women so far. Some really interesting games happening this weekend and last weekend. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting into it.
How was the game at the weekend that you were at?
It was grand. It probably wasn't the best game of rugby that I've ever watched. The first half was probably better from Old Belvedere's point of view. The second half was kind of scrappy. Old Belvedere scored 2 tries earlier on in the second half, but then the game kind of dwindled out after that. But yeah, Old Belvedere were the better team on the day. They won 29-13. That was kind of a win they needed as well, because they had only won 3 games previously in the league, and all their wins actually have all came from home. So AIL Park is a bit of a fortress for them.
Is it enough though? We talk about maybe a bit later. We get down to Division 1B, but 4 wins at this stage of the season. Okay, it's a 50% record, but they've put themselves back into the mid-table mix. They're only 1 point off fourth place. Can you see them mounting a charge over the next 10 games to get into that playoff position?
In my previews every week, I say they have a really good team, but until they sort out whatever their problem is outside Ollie Campbell Park, like when they leave the place, they just can't produce a result. And I think that's been the case not just this season, but in seasons gone by as well. So until they can, I don't know if there's some sort of magic, or they kind of just can't perform away from home. But until they sort that out, they can't really be in any real contention for a top 4 spot. They definitely have the players to do it. They definitely have the squad to do it and the coach. But 1B is so competitive that if you are winning one and losing one, you're actually not going to be doing too bad, because it's a seesaw in that division. You've got 2 teams kind of leading from the front in Buccaneers and City of Armagh at the moment, but in general, yeah, Old Belvedere need to sort out their away form.
You better put Mary's College in there as well. They're only 2 points behind Armagh. They might get upset with you. We're going to talk about women's rugby for the first couple of minutes in the show because, of course, this weekend, this Friday night, just 2 nights' time, 2 sleeps, is Energia Park final of the AIL women's division. And it's a fairly impressive lineup. The 2 teams that we kind of probably would have put odds on getting there at the start of the season. It's Railway Union. They face Blackrock. We're going to hear from Aimee in just a few moments, but before we do, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I suppose it's a repeat of the final last February, pretty much, at the end of last February. The only difference really is maybe Blackrock College are the slight favourites heading into this one, because they beat them a couple of weeks ago. I don't know, though, even at that, Railway have kind of been the standout team in Irish women's rugby for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 seasons now. So they maybe still are favourites. It makes for a really, really interesting game. It would be massive for Blackrock if they could pull it off, but Railway won't want to lose their title. So, it should be a great game. And the fact that it's on television is brilliant, I think, to be honest. The fact that people can tune in on Friday night and put it on TG Car and, watch a bit of women's rugby, I think it's really good. And it is going back to that kind of 2020 movement. If you can't see it, you can't be it. And just for the fact that it's on TV and people can watch it, young girls, even lads or even older generations, to be able to watch women's rugby, I think it is really, really good.
Yeah, looking back to the semi-finals last weekend, of course, Railway Union pretty much had it all their own way against Old Belvedere in the end. They did fall 2 tries behind twice in that first half, came back to win 34-19. Blackrock College, a bit of a different kettle of fish. They kind of struggled, scoreless through the first half, eventually won 13-8 against a fairly solid UL Bows team. Probably never really in danger of losing it, but a better performance than maybe expected from UL Bows.
Yeah, definitely. But I think last week when we were talking Mairead, she was kind of saying, that there was the possibility that they were kind of expecting UL to be that little bit better, and in fact they were a whole lot better considering the result earlier on in the season, where I don't know the exact result, but I'm pretty sure Blackrock hammered them and there was no question. So the fact that they kind of made it a lot closer this time around and actually made a contest of it says a lot about them as a team, and they obviously were very much up for it going into the game. It's also a great test for Blackrock. They could have got caught in the hop maybe, but they still got over the hurdle. They're still in the final. And, that's a good test for them, I think, because, if they had have hammered UL again, maybe they'd be going into this final a little bit, super confident. Whereas now they know that mistakes can still happen and they have to be on their best all the time.
Yeah, just check that score. In the 15th of October, down in UL, was actually 63-7, which is a hammering by anyone's measure. Does the fact that they kind of have struggled to get through that semi-final a little bit make it much more even game than maybe you kind of even initiated the conversation with saying that Blackrock win as favourites? Is it fair to call either of them favourites going into this? It's about as level as you can get, really.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, when I said Blackrock are favourites, when I said it, I almost kind of thought to myself, well, I don't know about that, Ciaran. I was kind of, doubting myself a little bit, and you're probably right. It's probably the most even final you can get in terms of who do you think's going to win it. I'm sure if you ask a Railway player, they're going to say Railway, and I'm sure if you ask a Blackrock player, they're going to say Blackrock. But I think it is very hard to call, but that's what you want. You don't want finals where you kind of know who's going to win it before you go into it. I think that it is really good that, you've got two teams going into the game on Friday. Either of them can win it, and whoever wins it will deserve it on the night and from the season that they've both had so far. So, and I think it makes it better for the spectator as well, to be able to watch a game where you're like, oh, these are two very good teams. Who can win here? Because, that's what you want. You want competitive games, and you want to see competitive games on the TV. That's my main problem with the URC. Sometimes I feel like with a lot of those games, a lot of the time the result before the game. And in this kind of game, it's going to be really competitive. I think they're two very good teams, two teams that definitely deserve to be in the final as well. It wasn't a case of one of them, got a lucky semi-final win and somehow ended up in the final. Like, on merit, both of these teams really do deserve to be here. So I think it makes for a cracking game, to be honest.
How excited are you to be kind of keeping an eye on it on Friday night?
No, it's great, because I think the fact that it's on Friday as well is actually quite smart, because just in my point of view, I would have probably been at a game. I'll be at a game on Saturday, and if the game was at a time that I couldn't have watched it, or even for the men's side, like I know Blackrock have the senior men's team in 2A, and they'll obviously want to be watching it and supporting the girls, but they probably couldn't have watched it. Maybe if it was at a different time, or even at 5 o'clock on a Saturday, because you never know by the time they come in and get set and get organised. But yeah, I think it is really good to have it on the Friday, and it kind of builds into that AIL weekend as well, because you've got all the games on Saturday, and then you're like, oh, we watched the game last night. So it is really good that it's on a Friday night. I know sometimes in the men's they do Friday night games at the odd time, but it doesn't happen very often. I think Lansdowne might do one a season or two a season, but I think Friday night games are a good idea.
Yeah, we have seen a couple of them this year so far. But first of all, you caught up with Aimee Clarke of Railway Union, their flying winger over the last hour or so. Let's hear what you had to chat about when you caught up earlier today.
And I'm delighted to be joined by Railway Union player Aimee Clarke for the second time this season. Last time it was with Luke, and now it's with me. So we're delighted to have you back.
I'm very, very glad to be back. Thanks very much for having me, Ciaran.
And I suppose when you were talking to Luke earlier on in the season, it was pretty much the start of the season or a few games in. And now you're coming towards the end of it. You're in the final again. How are you feeling?
Excited. Really, 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 really excited. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a couple of nerves coming in, but you know what? I'd be a bit worried if I didn't have nerves, because nerves mean you want it. So I'm feeling really good. There's a good buzz going around.
And I suppose you've only lost one game this season, and they're against the team that you're playing in the final, Blackrock College. So are you eager to get one back up on them and get that win on Friday?
I'm eager to play how we can play. That's what I am, and I think we're coming to like that real sweet spot in the season where everything is just coming together and it's gelled, and geez, you know what the person left to you is thinking, and you know what the person right to you had for dinner 2 days ago. So everything is just it's starting to click, like, and it's gonna be some game on Friday, like.
And the semi-final was a close affair as well, with all Belvedere really tight. You were slagging me before we came on here because I said Old Belvedere might be the team to beat in the women's division, but Railway are in the final and Blackrock, so I was wrong. But it was a really tough semi-final you had on Saturday.
Yeah, really, really tough, both physically, mentally, and just the conditions were. Oh, you wouldn't put your mother-in-law out in them like they were a cat. But I think it showed the work that we're putting in behind the scenes, the kind of rugby we played in the last 60 minutes. Like, I thought it was really class, and it's just an absolute credit to Al Belvedere. They don't make anything easy, so like, it was a smashing game. Like,
what do you think from that game that you lost against Blackrock College? What do you think you've improved on in the last few weeks that maybe you can use in the game on Friday?
well, personally, I think I've improved on not having a dead leg and being out injured. But I don't know. I think it's a funny one. Like, a lot of games you kind of hype up in your head, and sometimes you can just in your head already play them and kind of expect an outcome and stuff. And the Blackrock game was a really, really close game anyways. So I think on Friday, like, we're both going to be gearing for it. So I think this game is going to, like, it's going to, if you have to watch any game this season, I'd say this is the game you're going to want to watch. But I think everything, we've all just been constantly working on everything. So I wouldn't say there's really a standout feature or a standout component of the game. Like,
And as you say, people should watch this game, and it's great that the game is on TG Carr on Friday night. Isn't it great that your family members, your friends are able to tune in if they can't make it? Even just maybe people that don't necessarily follow women's rugby, but they just stumble across it on Friday night and just decide to turn it on. Like, isn't it great that it's available?
it's class, but it's something that should always be available. Like, if you look at the women's game, some of the League of Ireland women's games were televised, and then the GAA, some of the women's games were televised. But I work with a lot of kids, and the kids were like, you're on telly this weekend? Are you going to be famous and all? I was like, oh, yeah. And then my dad has a pub, so he said to me he was going to put it on in the pub, and now it feels good that there's going to be about 40 outfits in their 60s cheering for a women's rugby team, which you'd never usually see the likes of.
Yeah, no. It's actually, I was away. I live with my grandparents, but I was away that weekend last year, and I came back, and my grandfather said to me, I watched a great women's rugby game on the TV, and that was something that I was surprised for someone like him to say. And I was like, really, Grandad? And he said, yeah, it was brilliant. It should be on the TV more often. So, it does have that effect.
Yeah, sure. It's the whole, if you go back to the 2020 campaign, if you can't see it, you can't be it, and it's class that it's getting televised and it's getting out there and more people are coming to the sport,
But I guess the main objective for you on Friday, it isn't about it being on TV. As great and all as that is, it's all about winning.
Yeah. Well, it's playing how I know we as a team can perform, and like the girls that you line out with and the girls that you train with, like I haven't got enough words for how grateful I am for them as a team and the management we have, And to be honest with you, through all the sports I've played, through all the teams I've played for, there is no other team that I'd want to be stepping out onto a pitch with. Like, they're a different class. Like,
and I suppose this year with having the final just before Christmas, it's that extra kind of incentive, you want to be going into the Christmas break on a bit of a high, and you want to kind of get into the festive spirit, I suppose, after the game on Friday night, hopefully.
Absolutely, yeah. I think if you're to talk to anybody else about me on the team, they'd say I'm in the festive spirit 24/7,
Yeah. But the All-Ireland League, or the All-Ireland Cup, is beginning after Christmas. How do you feel about that? And would you have preferred to see maybe a longer season for the normal AIL, or do you welcome the idea of the All-Ireland Cup?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm playing rugby 5 years now, and in my complete 5 years of rugby, I've never actually had the same season twice. So I think the way it worked out last year, I think it was good. Now, don't get me wrong, it was intense and it was a lot of games, but I also think this season was too short. Like, one game against one team isn't necessarily enough, but here the powers above me are deciding these things. So, but I would have liked to see a longer season. I think it would have kind of let more teams get into the flow of it and develop and up their games, and in turn up in their games, up in the sport.
And I suppose Railway are a team that would be full of interprovincial players, and with the interpros coming up after Christmas, are the players have they got one eye on that, or are they fully focused for the job they have to do for Railway on Friday?
I think everybody's fully focused. It's kind of like if you're going up the stairs, if you skip one step, you can slip. So I think you kind of need to focus on what's ahead of you and not what's far in front of you.
And who do you think your big game players are going to be on Friday night?
I think everybody's a big game player if you ask me. But I don't know. I think there's been a lot of really, really standout performances of the team as in general. But I think we've had a lot of consistently good performances. So I couldn't tell you who the standout players are.
And is there anybody on that Blackrock team you fear a little bit, or you reckon could give you a tough go in the night?
I wouldn't necessarily say fear. I definitely admire a lot of the players. I think a lot of them are athletes and like really commit to the sport, and um really, really talented rugby players. And I just think that's even better because it's class to play against somebody who's really good. Like, it makes
Yeah.
you want to drive on and you push forward. But Blackrock as a whole, as a team, is always really strong, a really threatening team. But I think we'll be well able to give it a go anyways.
What has been the standout moment of the season for the team and also for you, I suppose? So two separate kind of questions.
Do you know what? For me personally, I think kind of consistently getting starts and getting game time would be my standout. Last year I was on the bench for the AIL Final, I think it was. So, like, and the year before that, I don't even think I was included in the squad. But I just think it's really like, I think it's showing the kind of progress I've made on a personal level and in an athletic form. So that'd be my standout. But for the team as a whole, I think kind of we're consistently getting better each game. And I know a lot about sport as a mental sport, and I think we're kind of getting rid of them mental barriers and just pushing through and really, really striving for the performances we can give.
I suppose you said there about more consistent game time for yourself. And how pleased are you, or how proud of yourself are you that you're doing it at a club that is probably the best in Ireland? Like, it's not just any club, it's one of the best in Ireland. You said you've only been doing this a few years, and now you're heading into an AIL final in Energia Park. It's on the television. You have a chance of getting a bit of silverware. Like, that's some personal journey, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I struggled with just in life in general, just mentally for a while, and I kind of put rugby on the back burner. But this season, kind of towards the start of the summer, and this season, I kind of kicked my arse into gear essentially, and the management setup that we have and the girls in the squad have been with me through all of my highs and all of my lows. And do you know what? I think I kind of wanted to do it more so for them than anything else. Like, I wanted to be the best version of a player I can be for the people beside me, and the people within the squad. Like, they push you on for it. Like, there's always someone nipping at your heels to get into a position and get into a spot, and it just makes you want more. And I love that competition.
And I'm right in saying that Larissa Muldoon, this is her first season, isn't it? Kind of involved in the
First,
coaching side
first
of
season
things.
with us. She was
Yeah.
involved with Trinity last year, who did incredibly well. They even got promoted as well. Like, so, first season with us, as far as I'm aware.
What impact has she had on the squad?
Hugely positive. Like, I played with Larissa my first few years. She played with Railway as well, but she's bringing a new insight into it and a fresh insight to it, and she's played the game and she's played at a high level, and she's coming from the women's side of sport, and it's nice to have someone who's been at the top of the game and knows how to play a game, and to get their view on things and insights, and kind of every coach coaches differently, and that's not a bad thing. It's an incredible thing, and just to have that new outlook, it's top class. Like,
And I suppose my last question is, what's your prediction for Friday?
If you ask anybody asks me this, and I say I don't like to do predictions because I feel like I'm a bit of a jinx. So I'd be like, I'd say this, I could say tomorrow, oh, it's definitely going to lash rain, it's going to snow, and you get 20 degrees weather outside. So
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind, but I'm not going to do no prediction.
Well, actually, on that, the weather conditions, because we don't know what the weather's going to be like this weekend.
I heard it's supposed to snow.
Yeah, there's all types of reports.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe even the game might not happen as according to plan. Hopefully it does, though. But
you better have some wood around you, and you better touch it now.
yeah,
Don't be saying, I
yeah,
can't put myself through another week.
yeah, I'll touch the table. But I suppose if there is a bit of wind, a bit of rain, or even a bit of snow, and the game does go ahead, will those kind of factors play a part in the game, or do you think you're well able to deal with anything that kind of comes of it?
I think growing up and being from Ireland, I think any kind of rain and weather makes you perform better almost, because that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
But I think our game management skills are up there enough to be able to manage the game and whatever kind of weather conditions that comes to us, I just hope I don't have to wear a ski suit. That's all I hope.
Yeah. So you're hoping that you get the win on Friday, and I suppose it's a massive moment for the team, but also for yourself. And kind of, what would be your last kind of message before the game?
Before the game, in regards to teammates or people or myself.
Just to yourself and the team, and kind of like, what's the takeaway for you going into the game?
The takeaway for me, I'd struggle a lot with anxiety and stuff before a game. I think the kind of mindset I'd be saying is, it's just another game, just with lights, like if you let a title of a game take over, then it's going to just mess up with your head and all. At the end of the day, you're there to do a job, so get out there, do your job, and that's all you can ask for, Yeah,
what will be, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was great to talk to you tonight anyway, and best of luck on Friday.
It was lovely, Ciaran. Thanks again very much for having me.
No worries.
Yeah.
If I took mute off, I'd be doing really, really well. Great conversation there. Nice girl, but also fine athlete, and not quite sure where she's going to be on the start 15 herself for Friday night, but will be, if called upon, will make a huge impact in that game, I'd imagine, if she scored some nice tries earlier this year.
Yeah, just even listen to her own personal journey this season, going from not getting in the squad a couple of years ago for the final to being on the bench last season, and then hoping to start this season, and talking about the anxiety she has before games and all that. It's very relatable, I think, to anybody, not just athletes, and I think it's really important to speak about those things. So it's very interesting, just her own personal journey, but also it would be great for her and all the team if they could get the result on Friday.
Absolutely, of course. That's not the only game this weekend. We have also on Saturday evening, we have 4 p.m. kickoff. It's been brought forward an hour, so originally was scheduled to be 5. It's now looks to be at 4 o'clock on Saturday. May I confirm that first, girl?
Yeah, I think it is 4 o'clock now. It was meant to be on at 5. I don't actually know why it's been moved forward to 4 o'clock, but as far as I'm aware, it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah, just keep an eye on the club social media accounts just to make sure before you travel to that particular one. But if you get there early, you can always enjoy a nice toasty drink in Ashtown Lane when you get there. It'll be a good game, I'd imagine, and both sides.
The bar will definitely be open.
Of course it will. It's an All-Ireland final. They'll have a big crowd in. It'll be, I suppose, it's a big day for everybody involved. Obviously, Galwegians, of course, were in this final last year, but for Wicklow, given the way, say, 21-22 season started for them, it's a huge achievement to even got to this level. Never mind be the top seeds, the home side. it's huge for women's rugby in that club and in the county in general.
No, it's massive. Like, really, I say it every week, so I don't really want to go on too much, but it is really important for them and for them as a group. I think to be where they are, it's a massive testament to the coaches, to everyone involved in the club, to the girls that have, after those first 3 results last season, like, there must have been thoughts of like, why are we doing this? Or, it was tough for them. And just to go on this journey that they're on, where they nearly qualified for the top 4. Like, obviously, Saturday night is all about winning for them, but even if they didn't win, they're already ahead. They're already ahead in their plan, probably, than what they thought they'd be at this point. I think everything is so positive coming out of the club at the minute. Like, I know that they have 2. I think they're in 2 Leinster finals. Underage next week, I think under 14s, and like, they have the best underage setup for girls in Leinster without a doubt. So the talent is gonna keep coming through. It's brilliant to see, but it's really uplifting for the whole club, like, because Wicklow, obviously their men are in Leinster League 1B, and with the women being in the AIL now, it does give a club like Wicklow a little bit more coverage, and there's a little bit more eyes to the club. It's just a local club, it's a little town club, and to be like, even, in these type of games, it's so important to them. It means everything. And for some of those girls, like, they started playing rugby at the club when they were 7 years old, 8 years old, and to be at this point now, it must feel amazing.
Absolutely. The best luck to both teams, of course, in that final on Saturday evening, 4 p.m. kickoff in Ashton Lane. Get down to it if you can. I'm not sure about streaming situations, but I'm sure if you keep an eye on both teams' social medias, you'll find out if there are plans in place to stream that game over the weekend. Now, casting our attention towards the men's game, Division 1A, of course, some big games over the last week. We might just start with results there. Actually, jumped the gun a little bit on myself. Corkon 22, Clontarf 29. Garryowen well beaten by Ballynahinch 28-10. Energia College 23, Trinity 21. While UCD and Lansdowne 1 point separated them, 27-26. And then Young Munster, a solid local derby victory there, 32 points to 3 over Shannon. Some big games there over last weekend. Of course, Terranure maintained their 100% win rate at the top. But at the bottom, Garryowen, 10 points separate them and second last team Shannon. How big were this weekend's results in terms of Garryowen's chances of surviving in Division 1A?
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to disrespect them here, but they're not going to get a result against Clontarf. It's just, I might have to eat my hat next week, but to be honest, it's just not going to happen. Like, I can't see it happening, like, to be honest. And it's tough to say that, but I think, like, relegation is the only way for them at the minute. Like, unless they make a load of signings over Christmas and Santa arrives and he gets them, gives them a whole load of new lads, it's going down is the only way for them I can see at the minute.
Yeah, it's Ciaron the Grinch Noble here on the podcast this week for the time of year that's in it. But it does look like it's an uphill challenge for them to stay in the division. You're saying not possible. It's not going to happen. Not
possible, but just very, very unlikely. Like, unless, like, I can't see from the results, like, you can kind of see, like, with Shannon, I obviously don't get to see them every week, but from looking at the video and looking at the results, you can kind of see that improvements are being made all the time. Maybe not with that Young Munster game. I think they'll be really disappointed with that result. But in general, like, over the weeks, you could see that little improvements are being made, that they're on the right track in a lot of ways. But for Garryowen, it hasn't been like that. They've been pretty much, I think, bar one game maybe where they could have won. I think it was maybe against Young Munster earlier on. They only lost by a couple of points. But I think, going down is probably, where they're heading. And it's like that happened to UCC last year as well. They kind of never got out of the blocks in 1A and they ended up going down. So that's kind of the trend sometimes, that if you come to the halfway point and you're in 10th, a lot of the times in a division so hard like 1A, it is hard to kind of turn the tide.
Yeah, Tranmere, we talked about them being top of the table, 8 wins from 8, but they really left it late this weekend. It took a late penalty from Caelan Dooley to to kind of put them 2 points to the good against Trinity. Is that sign maybe that they are beatable, that there is an opportunity there for some of the other teams to really take them on over the next few weeks?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a positive for other teams that they're not. That is the closest any team has got to beating them, by the way. What Trinity did at the weekend, which shouldn't go on. I actually feel really bad for Trinity, to be honest, because they almost beat Clontarf. They were almost the first team to beat Clontarf in 19 games. Clontarf scored at the very end of the game to steal the win. Young Munster did the exact same to them the week after in Trinity. And now Caelan Dooley's penalty won Terenure the game pretty much at the end as well. So that's like 3 games in a row where it's just the luck of the bounce, really. It just hasn't went Trinity's way. And it's those fine margins, But for Terenure, I do think they've been the best team in the league by a country mile, to be honest. But I do think the likes of Trinity, Clontarf, maybe even Young Munster this weekend, which is a massive game with the way Young Munster are playing, who knows? Maybe they can be the first team to beat Terenure. Everybody slips up. I don't think it's happened very often where a team in 1A has won every game in a season. So there is probably a slip up in there somewhere. But I think it would only be 1, or if you're lucky, maybe 2. But Terenure are really, really good. You'd have to say they're favourites at the moment with the way they're playing. But the likes of Trinity and Clontarf are probably the closest teams to kind of providing that upset or, beating them.
In terms of the fixtures this weekend, which of them stand out to you as kind of must-watch games? Are we looking at the top of the table, like you mentioned, Terenure, Young Munster, or are we looking at one maybe where there's a little bit of positional decision up for play, like Lansdowne Shannon at the bottom of the table? A win would probably give either one of them a really good kind of run into the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think there's probably 3 games that I have my eye on, in terms of, just for different reasons. Like you mentioned, Terenure, Young Munster, that is a really big game. In terms of just, I think Young Munster with the run they're on, being the first team to beat Clontarf in ages, beating Trinity in College Park at the end of the game, then hammering Shannon last week. I think they're just on a real upward trajectory, and it would be really cool if they, to finish their year with 4 massive wins like that, and to be the first team to beat Terenure would be some way to finish your year. For Terenure, they're just gonna do what they usually do and hope to get a win. But then you've got Trinity Cork this weekend. Very important game. I think Trinity are 3rd, or Cork. It's between Trinity and Cork anyway for 3rd and 4th. A win for either team would kind of cement them in that top 3. And then if they lose, they're kind of leaving the door open for Young Munster in 5th to kind of close the gap. So it's a really important game for both teams. And then, as you said, Shannon Lansdowne, I think, is a massive game in terms of kind of distancing yourself from that kind of relegation kind of battle. Lansdowne really, for the amount of players they have and the amount of lads they have there, it just really hasn't happened for them this season. So they need to win against Shannon, but I think Shannon will give them a good go. I actually thought, to be honest, that Lansdowne would breeze through UCD. For some reason, I just thought Lansdowne were going to get the win handy enough. And when I saw the result, when I got into my car on Saturday, I was actually really surprised that Lansdowne kind of let UCD beat them. So I don't know what's going on with Lansdowne. But yeah, I think that is a really important game for both teams.
Okay, let's move our attention one division down to 1B at the moment. Of course, Buccaneers ruling the roost in this division. They had another comfortable set of results over the weekend. Just quickly looking down through the results here in front of me. Buccaneers a big win over Banbridge, 44-13, while Old Wesley were beaten 15-10 by St. Mary's College. City of Armagh overcame Naas 38-28. Highfield 29, UCC 10 in what's been a tough year for them in this division after dropping down from the top division, as you mentioned. And Old Belvo, we talked about it earlier on, it was the game you were at, 29-13 against Malone. That leaves Malone, Banbridge, Naas in a bit of bother at the bottom of the table, but at the top, Buccaneers, they seem to be untouchable at the moment. The 7 wins on the bounce. They go into this weekend's fixtures buzzing with confidence. They play Naas, struggling at the bottom of the table. You'd expect them to continue their winning ways. Can you see any difference?
Well, you see, you talk about the bottom of the table. I'm not surprised Malone are there. I'm not really surprised Banbridge are there, because I think Malone finished 8th last season and Banbridge finished 9th. So in a regular season, Banbridge would have went down probably. So I wasn't really surprised them two were there. But Nice beaten finalists last year, of course. They're beaten by Shannon in the 1B final. I think Nice have some really, really good players. I think Andrew Osborne is top try scorer for the league at the minute. I think he's got 7 or maybe 8.
He's
So like,
yeah.
so they have really good players. Like and I wouldn't be surprised if they produce some sort of result on Saturday, to be honest, because they do have the team to do it. I think maybe things just haven't really went to plan. But I was saying in my preview earlier, actually, when I was doing it, that Nice last season they didn't perform very well in the first half of the season, and they really kicked into gear the second half. So from their point of view, that's what they want to do again. But a big win against Buccaneers would be a great way to kind of give you that boost in confidence. Like a team that looked really, really good, really, really assured. Eddie O'Sullivan, we were talking about him before the show. Like I think he's a bit underrated, to be honest. Even with his time with Ireland, like he was a fantastic coach for Ireland, I think. He's doing a really good job with Buccaneers. Like they were a 2A club, and to be honest, in that 2A season last season, everyone was talking about Queens, and Queens were going to go up, and Bucks managed to kind of sneak up. So you're kind of wondering coming into the season, would they kind of struggle in 1B? Would they be kind of in a relegation battle? But I think it's pretty much safe to say they won't be getting relegated anyway. Whatever else happens, who knows? But I think they're they're going to be all right in that sense. But I think what they're doing is brilliant. City of Armagh too. Not a lot of people talk about them, but they are actually dark horses, sitting in second, just going about their business, really. They're going about their business nice and quietly. Then you've got St. Mary's obviously there as well. Sean Cronin, the head coach there. There's some really talented head coaches or kind of popular head coaches in this division. You've got Johnny Murphy and Nace, and then you've got Sean Cronin and Eddie O'Sullivan. So the league's kind of lucky in that sense. And then you've kind of got that bunch, UCC, who, let's not forget, after the first 4 games were kind of, they were leading from the front, 4 from 4. Everyone was kind of wondering, would they go straight back up to 1A? And now, 4 games after that, they're in 7th. So that just shows how the tables can turn. You've got Belvo and Wesley in 6th and 5th, have probably been a bit inconsistent, especially Old Wesley by their standards this season, but they're still very much in the mix. That, the way the teams pile up in 1B, 1 or 2 results can really change everything. It's a really competitive division, but I think Buccaneers and City of Armagh will be pretty happy with what they're doing at the minute.
Absolutely. Division 2A, of course. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Division 2A, of course, there's the league table. Blackrock College clear at the top, 7 wins. Barnhall beat Dolphin 34-19. Blackrock College beaten Nina Ormond 17-14. Navan 15. I think that actually might be 15-10 against UL Bohemians. Old Crescent 32. Ballymena 14. While Queen's University 38-31 against Cashel. But Blackrock College, again, recently promoted from Division 1 2B. They came up last season. Queens were at the business end of the table last year, but it's kind of an impressive performance from them this season. They've really kind of outperformed maybe everyone's expectations, maybe even their own slightly.
Yeah, well, I suppose they'll be delighted where they are, because I don't know what their goals were at the start of the season, but it was probably, to make sure we're in the mix, or we're in a good healthy position, and you couldn't be any healthier than first in the table. It's all about the second half of the season now for them. Obviously they have to take care of the business at the weekend, but going into the second half of the season, they have to kind of maintain that form, get some big wins. Queens, will they be a little bit disappointed that they've dropped off a little bit and are in second, or are they kind of, I know last year they kind of dominated, they were in first the whole time. And then it kind of got to the point where they got to the final. They should have went up, similar to Greystones. And then just the way it fell because of COVID, they didn't get that chance. So maybe they're, I don't know, tapering their performance a little bit. Maybe they're trying not to peak too much early on and try to get it right near the end of the season. But it's a really interesting division. I think UL Bows just haven't really we were talking about their women's team earlier on, but their men's team just haven't really got fire in this season. They'll be disappointed with that because only a few seasons back, I think they were in 1B, if I'm correct. So, it's mad to think that they could be heading to 2B. But I think that just shows how competitive the AIL is and its nature.
Yeah, absolutely. That was 15-0. Actually, I just double checked the score. For some reason, I thought that I was questioning our own accuracy here on finalwhistle.ie. So this weekend's fixtures, some interesting clashes there. We see Queens, they host Ballymena. You'd expect Queens to come through that. Buccaneers, top of the table at the moment. I'm not sure who they play this weekend.
I think you mean Blackrock.
I do. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah.
Blackrock. I'm looking for the wrong team name. They play Cashel, so it's first against third. It's a chance for them to put some daylight between the two of them. Cashel win, it's all back into the mixing pot again. It's a big game going into the Christmas, and of course they have the return leg in 5 weeks' time as well.
Yeah, no, that's the really important thing to mention about the way the league goes as well, because it's kind of when the turnaround, you played the team you last played, and then the second last team. So it's kind of, this block is really important because it's all about getting a bit of form and getting a bit of consistency and a bit of confidence. So it's a really important game for both teams. Blackrock, if they win, they're pretty healthy going into Christmas. They'll be in festive spirits anyway if they get the victory. Cashel, if they win, they put themselves right in the mix, and they also leave the door slightly open for Queens maybe to go top heading into the new year. So it's very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, Division 2B then, of course, Greystones, big win away to Malahide, 35-7. They won the Galway Corinthians, another massive result for them, 54-14, a 40-point winning margin for Corinthians in Corinthian Park on Saturday afternoon. Wanderers Galwegians, a 31-point draw, plenty of tries all over the place. Rainy Old Boys, they emerged by a single point against Enniscorthy, while Sligo had a try to spare against Dungannon away. But some pretty big scores, but some pretty big statement results there. Galway Corinthians against Belfast Harlequins, both teams in the hunt. Galway have really put their hand up to be considered here for promotion potential there, potentially.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was the result in 2B that really surprised me, because Belfast Harlequins were in the playoffs last year. Corinthians were also in the playoffs. I think they both lost in the semi-final. So you'd expect that game to be way more competitive in terms of the scoreline. And to see how Corinthians beat them, it was kind of a shock, to be honest. And it was a real statement of intent from them. If I'm right, did Galwegians win this? Or they drew? I think Galwegians, they struggled at the start of the season. But I actually did say this last week about the Greystones result. They only lost by 2 points, I think, last week. And I did say that was a sign that maybe things are getting better. And even to get the draw, it is a slight improvement. So maybe they could have a big second half to the season. Who knows? Enniscorthy, they just haven't really got firing. And in 2B, they're struggling a little bit. Wanderers, Greystones, massive game this weekend, I think. Wanderers beat Greystones in the pre-season in the Leinster League semi-final thing that they do. Wanderers actually beat them quite convincingly, if I remember correctly. So it'll be interesting to see if Wanderers can be the first team to beat them this season. But massive credit to Greystones. They've been excellent so far this season. Only 3 teams in the AIL are unbeaten. You've got Terranure, you've got Greystones, and then Instonians, who are the only team to get all the points available to them. So, those 3 teams deserve maximum credit. 2B is really, really interesting. I think it is a bit like 1B in that sense. It kind of bunches up in the middle a little bit. I think it could be a really interesting kind of league come February, March time.
Yeah, of course, we haven't mentioned Sligo beating Dungannon at all. Dungannon had been running really, really hot, and Sligo went down there, fell behind, but came back to win by 7 points at the death. And never really looked in danger of losing it from about 15-20 minutes into the game. They got 2 quick tries and were kind of in a fairly strong position. But what they've actually done, as you said, is they've closed up that gap from, say, 3rd right back to 7th or 8th. But there's only really a game and a half between them, and we could see huge change there over the next, I suppose 10 rounds of games. But all of those teams have to fancy their chances, from Dungannon right down to Malahide potentially, definitely down as far as Wanderers. to get into that shake-up and get one of those 4 spots. Can you see the likes of Rainey, Sligo Wanderers, Malahide getting into those top 4 spots?
It really depends on how the second half of the season goes, because I know Greystones, just gone back to Greystones, they were in a similar position to what they are now. I think they were unbeaten in the first half of the season, and I know they lost a couple of games in the second half, so they still finished top, but the form wasn't quite the same. And I think that can happen. Rainey Old Boys obviously came down from 2A, so they'll be hoping for a bigger second half to the season and a better one. Wanderers were very good in the second half of the season. Last time out, I think they just finished 5th. I think they missed out by maybe 2 points getting into the playoffs. They'll be hoping to do the same again this year. It's really a form thing in these divisions, like in 1B and 2B especially. Like if you can get a run of maybe 3 games where you win, or you win 4 out of 5, it'll really help you, and it will really climb you up the table.
Absolutely, of course. Hubert Gilvary featured for the Irish development side at the Sevens in Dubai last week. He's back with Sligo this weekend. They take on Corinthians. It'll be a real test to see where those 2 Westerners are this season, and whether they're playing out for that title of best of the rest after Buccaneers in Connacht over the next couple of months in that very interesting Division 2B. We didn't quite flash the league table up there at the moment, but that's what it looks like at the moment. As we said, 6 points separate 3rd from 8th. Galwegians play Enniscorthy this weekend, and they could, in theory, if they were to beat them twice over the next 2 rounds of games, they could put Enniscorthy 13, 14, 15 points behind at the bottom of the table, and it would look like curtains for Enniscorthy at that stage, Ciaran.
Yeah, and also it's a great one for Galwegians to have, really, because I was just talking about that their form seems to be a little bit on the up, and to have 2 games in a row against Enniscorthy, a team that are probably lacking a bit of confidence. If Galwegians can get the 2 wins, it'll get them points on the board, and who knows, maybe they'll get a place up. They'll climb a place higher in the table. So I think, it's a really important 2 games for them. But in the same respect, it's a massive 2 games for Enniscorthy to try and fight for their kind of survival so earlier on in 2B. So it's a massive game for both clubs.
Yeah, 2 big wins could see them put all the pressure back on Galwegians as well, of course. In Division 2C, Estonians, what can we say? We talk about them every week. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about them today, because we do talk about them every week. 8 wins from 8 bonus points. Perfect season so far. Can they get to the halfway point and continue that? Can they get the bonus point at the weekend?
Well, there's nothing to say that they can't, to be honest. Or there's no indication that they're slowing down. They're like a steam train at the minute, and they're just flying ahead. With the way they're going, actually, you can kind of almost a bit like Terranure. They're favourites for 2C anyway, and you can kind of say like you expect them to go up at this rate, to be honest.
Yeah,
you'd be surprised if they didn't.
They had a big 47-13 win against Middleton last week. Clonmel had 2 points to spare, 30-28 against Bruff, while Tullamore beat Bangor 23-15. Ballina 1 try to spare. A big win for them, because they have been struggling so far this year, but they've managed to pull it back to 2 points at the bottom of the table with a 24-17 win over Omagh Academicals. And in the final round of the game of the final game of the round, should I say, Sunday as well, 24, Skerries 21. So it's interesting. The 2 bottom sides both winning at the weekend has kind of brought them back into contention. Omagh now looking over their shoulder. Of course, they have Estonians at the weekend, another defeat, and they could see themselves dropping a little bit closer to that relegation situation out of the league.
Yeah, for sure. A massive Ulster derby there in Estonians and Omagh. Omagh won't want to slip. Actually, Omagh, my mother's from Omagh, so I have a bit of graw for Omagh, I suppose. But for them, like, it would be that loss against Ballina probably surprised them a little bit, to be honest. And Ballina were a team that were really struggling, and for them to get the win, it kind of does put the frighteners on Omagh a little bit, that they need to get their act together. In terms of the top of the table, you've got Tullamore as well, doing really well, I think. Skerries still thereabouts. there's kind of a lot of teams in that mix for the top four, and then the bottom table you've got a tight competition as well. I think, yeah, it's a really interesting division, and again, a lot can happen in the second half of the season. Who knows? Who'll find form? Like, is it 18 Bangor on and Omagh on 14? So in the same respect, Omagh could win a game, and if other results go their way, they could be back in the mid-table and not really in that bottom table discussion. But it's really just the difference of one result or two results, really.
Does that Ballina result of the weekend change your mind on maybe who's going to be in the bottom spot come the end of the season?
You can't really judge it on one game. Like, if they can back it up next week and then maybe a few games in the new year, yeah, then maybe they'll survive. But you can't really judge on one game. I suppose you have to. It's all about getting 2 wins behind your 3 wins or 4 out of 5, and that's really all it takes in these divisions, because they're so competitive that even if you can win 4 out of 5 games or even 3 out of 4, that's a 75% win ratio, which is pretty good for the AIL, like, considering it's so competitive. So that's kind of the way you have to look at it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, that's it for the AIL coverage for the week. Of course, attention does turn slightly on finalwhistle.ie rugby to the schools game over the next few months, right up until mid-March. We're going to be covering all of the school senior cups in each of the 4 provinces, with a particular focus on Connacht through a partnership we've organised with Connacht Rugby. We're going to be looking at their draw tomorrow night on the show next week, but we'll also be looking at the draws in the other provinces as well. I know the Leinster draw is next week, so we'll be keeping you abreast of everything that's going on in the schools game over the next 3.5-ish months or so. Ciaran, pleasure as always to have you this week. Where are you for the weekend?
I'm in Trinity. I'm doing the Trinity Cork Con commentary on their live stream, so it should be a good game.
Well, listen, here's hoping it's an enjoyable one. If Trinity's games of recent weeks starting to go by, it's definitely going to be tight. I'm hoping to get down to the Sligo game myself on Saturday afternoon. It's going to be an interesting game, local derby against Galway, but some really big opportunity there for both sides to put a stake in for a playoff spot over the next few weeks. To everyone involved in the women's game at the weekend, let's look at the semi-final or the finals of both the league and the conference. It's the end of the AIL women's season, but there are plenty of games to be played in the cup. In whatever format it's going to be, it's probably going to be a similar type of.
I think it's pretty much the same, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a replay of this year's league competition, effectively. We'll be back with you again next week. Talk to you then.